Hey neighbor, welcome back to my roundup show Rapid Reviews, where I put 60 seconds on the clock and tear through my thoughts on new singles and EPs in quickfire fashion. I'm of course your favorite host in the entire world, John, and today we've got 16 brand new singles to review, so let's set this thing in motion. Quarantine has made plenty of artists out there quite productive. Not that all of these tracks have to do with the pandemic, but many of them do, and I'm sorry in advance for bringing it up so much. They're just hard to talk about without getting into it. Also, if you're not following me on Spotify already, do that. It's linked below. I have a ton of playlists that you can follow, including my best songs of 2020 that I update throughout the entire year with all of my favorite tracks. Smash a like for me before we get started to help support Rapid Reviews as a series. It doesn't get recommended a ton by YouTube, and a like really does go a long way. I've got a lot of opinions to share today, but let's start off on a super positive note and review the new single from Pup. Canadian punk rockers Pup continue to make me swoon with another fantastic, but this time hilarious single, Anaphylaxis. Frontman Stephen Babcock took a story of a family member running from bees out of fear of an allergic reaction and turned it into pure gold, a song that easily fits into the post-morbid stuff era. The shrill guitars are impressive to say the least, a ton of fun to rock out with as you shout along with the lyrics. I also wanted to single out and praise the drumming on this track because wow, thanks for slamming it home, Zach. Tremendous job all around to him and to all the other members too. This song is pretty much a simple pleasure that gives a much needed laugh, and if you're not having fun with Anaphylaxis, you're doing it wrong. Bubbling under pop queen Charli XCX has been all over the map in her not even a decade-old career, but I'm impressed that she's stayed so productive during the COVID-19 pandemic. Forever, along with the rest of the record, is dedicated to her current boyfriend, and I really actually like this tune. It definitely has a bangin' appeal with co-production coming from her longtime PC music collaborator A.G. Cook, but despite the oddities, I really think that she colored outside of the lines while keeping it down to earth. The autotune really fits the noisy synthscapes nicely, and the hook is a nice romantic ode, and I can definitely relate to the long distance thing. I'll give Forever a 4. That instrumental outro is borderline orgasmic. Now that leaves Claws as the other cut to dissect, and while it's slightly irritating, especially with repeated listens, she's gotten a lot better at making repetition work in her favor. A strong 3.5 for Claws. It looks like this could be shaping up to be one of the better pop albums of 2020. So, allegedly, Oliver's debut album, Ugly is Beautiful, was delayed due to the coronavirus, but then he dropped Let Me Down a few days later and hinted that it was still coming eventually? Who even knows with Oliver? From what I can gather, I'm getting the feeling that Turbo, this guy right here, is a character he's tired of playing, and from an artistic perspective, I totally understand that. Personally though, I love seeing whatever insane antics he gets himself into, and the music video is often a lot more engaging than the actual song. I guess that's kind of a problem, and that's the case again here for Let Me Down, even though this is a relatively catchy song with some really smooth guitar cadences. It could have been better, could have been worse. I'll toss a light 3.5 on this Meme King Gets Sick of Performing single. Hopefully we'll eventually get that full album. Thankfully this is a lot better than Lowlife. I still can't wrap my head around that massive flop of a lead single, but this feels like a B-grade In Bloom, which isn't totally a bad thing. There's definitely still a feeling like, oh yeah, for sure, this is definitely neck deep that I wasn't getting from Lowlife, but I can't be the only one that feels like they're getting way too cleaned up with each passing album. Lyrically, I'm sure it'll find a crowd that adores it. It's just a little bit basic there, and with the music not sounding all that fresh, more like a tomato that's been sitting out in the sun or something, I find it hard to care all that much about what they're doing, even though it sounds decent. I hate to toss them in the category of bands that really fell off, but they're kinda towing the line here. Fuck Drake for making this abomination. Fuck the fact that he made this exclusively to pander to TikTok because he's desperate to make his shit song dominate the charts. Drizzy Drake has not been himself in ages, and tracks like this remind me of his real motivations. Money, chart success, and keeping himself relevant with the kids. The fact that this lazily rapped, horribly produced tune can even get a pass simply because it's Drake, the most famous rapper in the world, is an abomination in its own right. But the dance challenge pandering with horribly forced, out-of-place dance instructions lyrics? Burn this pile of trash to the ground. Take this fucking L, 0, and sign my petition down below to make Drake take 2 years off from music. I don't even know if that would help, but I'm just desperate to get away from Drake at this point. Troye Sivan has never been an artist I've felt overwhelmingly excited by or anything, but he has talent along with his share of good songs, so I checked out his new single Take Yourself Home from his upcoming third album. This is fine, totally fine, also a little bit dull. I really liked that he tapped into some fresh energy with his last record, but outside of the danceable bass groove and the post-chorus and some interesting commentary about life and isolation in the writing, meh, I can't say that I'm feeling particularly strong about this one either way. Sheesh, the lead single from the first Evanescence album with fully original material in 9 years, and this is what you hit us with? Wasted on You is the name of the comeback track, and I'm feeling very extremely uninterested. The lyrics are complete throwaway fodder and also a little bit cheesy. The song takes forever to actually gain momentum, and while Amy Lee sounds fantastic as always, I mean, is a powerful voice enough? My answer, no. I mean, sure, it was nice to hear the parts where the band joins in, but the first half sounds prepped for pop radio, and the second half is geared to rock radio. And before you even say it, I'm very much aware that this album is intentionally all over the place according to Amy herself. But I seriously don't have much hope for this record if this was the best they could do for a lead single. It's passable, the hardcore fans will eat it up simply because they're starved for content, but I couldn't ever see myself coming back to this. Okay, I had a lot of requests coming in to talk about a new Avril Lavigne song, and I go to check it out and I see the title We Are Warriors, and I think to myself, okay, this must be some sort of remix of the closing song from her Head Above Water album, right? Well, apparently not. It's the exact same song under a different title. What? Okay, it's for charity. Obviously, I'm not gonna drop a deuce on her philanthropic efforts, and I appreciate the cause, but why re-release the exact same song with no changes under a slightly different name? It's still the generic fighting against invisible enemy or force anthem it was over a year ago, so yeah, still not a fan. I've never been head over heels in love with this classic rock group, and I don't think I've ever pretended to be, but I'm always down to discover something new that I've never heard from them before. This is their first original material since the early 2010s, and they actually sound surprisingly sharp here. I'm not sure if I expected them to sound like the 76-year-old men that they are or something, but Living in a Ghost Town manages to bridge the gap between timeliness and timelessness. Of course, the timely release was most likely rushed through the final stages of production to get this out while most of the world was still quarantined because of the coronavirus, but the song was actually partially written long before any of that. It just happens to naturally summarize most of our feelings right now, and with the steady guitar and bluesy harmonica richening the mix, I can get behind this more than I really ever thought that I would when hitting play. Fucking Christ, dude, Gorillaz have been crushing it in every single sense of the word with this Song Machine project, and episode 3 reveals what could possibly be my favorite out of the batch yet, Aries, featuring British artist Georgia on drums, and Peter freaking Hook of Joy Division and New Order fame. Setting the mood instantly is some guitar feedback in the studio before Gorillaz member Russell introduces the song, and from there on out, this is a fucking mood and a half with every little wavelength they put out. The polished bass groove puts the biggest smile on my face, the gentle guitars ebb and flow like the ocean, and the combination of programmed and studio drumming from Georgia washes over the ears like a bath full of ecstasy. The bath! Damon's vocal delivery as 2D touched my soul. It just gushes with emotion and sincerity. Peter Hook is phenomenal on the hook as we tread through these 80s leaning waters as the light synths reverberate through the bones of the track. A perfect score, honestly. Charity from musicians in response to COVID-19 has been incredible to see, and Light of Love saw the light of day because of our current predicament. This is a track that was left on the cutting room floor that was intended to fit on Flo's High as Hope album in 2018, but didn't make the cut there, so we're getting it now. I felt that setting instantly, as this could have easily appeared on the record. In fact, I'd go as far as to say it should have made the cut, but as a standalone single, it hangs in a little bit of a weird place. This is a well-written moment that again takes on Florence's relationship with her sister Grace and her past drug habits, but it does lack a bit of personality, something that I can't quite put a finger on. Surprises appear to be lurking around just about every single corner as Yungblud puts out one of his best singles to date with Weird. I have such an on and off again thing with him since I find a lot of his music and attitude to be very manufactured, almost plastic and annoying, but then he'll have his moments like Tin Pan Boy, Loner, which was excellent, and now this really solid single, Weird. Yungblud himself called this a coming-of-age song, and I thought to myself before I even read that, this feels like it could fit on a coming-of-age movie soundtrack. I'm a huge fan of films like that, I'm such a sucker for it, so whatever, the shoe fits, I'll gladly wear it. A strong 3.5 showing for Yungblud, the dude's definitely got potential, and I'm gonna keep an open mind going into album 2. Remo Drive really out here sounding absolutely nothing like the band from Greatest Hits again? Remo Drive don't entirely seem to know where to go from here. Frontman Eric Paulson is one of the nicest dudes that I've ever met, so this is kinda hard to do and talk about. It's clear that his taste is definitely all over the place in terms of genres and influence. On Star Worship, I'm ironically getting some Arctic Monkeys vibes, which I know maybe it's the correlation between Star Treatment and Star Worship, but something about this one feels very British. The brisk guitars sound pretty good, and the sarcastic lyrics that jab at critics are, well, honestly, a bit depressing. This is a bit of a mangled mess, and I can never get a pulse on the entirety of what they're doing. Once again, like the last record, I'm feeling pretty meh on this one, so I'll give it a cool 3. Here's to hoping that the album has some bangers, but we'll see. Tom DeLonge is a legend. I know I come down on him hard sometimes, but I've really gotta fork over some credit to how well things have been going now that Angels and Airwaves are back. We got 2 singles that really kept me hooked in 2019, and now we've got All That's Left Is Love, a non-album single to tide over anxious fans in the wake of the pandemic. There's some electrifying guitar passages here, especially the one that roars to life shortly after the song begins, and I love Tom's calm, soothing approach to writing that kinda puts me in a trance, kinda locking the worries away momentarily while we focus on the love. Strong 4. Tom's in a creative zen right now, and I have a feeling that the new AVA is gonna be optimistic, bright, and refreshing whenever the album lands. I don't have a ton to add to this one, just bumping it on your radar if you haven't heard that Jamie XX of the XX is back on his solo game with the offering I Don't Know. Pretty great stuff if you're into dance, rhythm, and breakbeat stuff that's right for the dance floor. 4 on the floor, 4 on the song. Saving the best for last? Not quite, but y'all already know that I love the Killers, and I'm feeling pretty conflicted on this Talking Heads-esque single, Fire and Bone, the second from their now, unfortunately, sadly, soul-crushingly delayed album, Imploding the Mirage. As for the song itself, this is a grower that requires some attentive patience. There's a bumping bass groove, shimmering lead synth, and some nice analogies by Brandon Flowers lining the surface, but I'm not entirely sure if they've won me on board here. Caution was an instant Killers classic, but Fire and Bone is much more reserved in a way. Not that this is inherently bad or a weird sin, it just feels a little bit too familiar. Give it some time, let it sink in. I'm feeling better about it like 10 listens later, so I'll give a cautious 3.5 to Fire and Bone, also known as the closer for the second trilogy in the Killers discography. Oh, you thought the Murder trilogy was good? Psh, the Bone trilogy is where it's at. Bones from Sam's Town, Flesh and Bone from Battleborn, and of course Fire and Bone on the upcoming Imploding the Mirage. I blew your mind, didn't I? Keep asking questions. Thank you guys so much for watching another installment of Rapid Reviews. If you enjoyed what you saw today and all of this coverage of 16 brand new singles, then drop a like on the video and subscribe if you happen to be new. Other than that, you can catch up on the last episode and the entire playlist actually right here, or tap here for another recent video on the channel. Socials can be found in the description down below, and I will see you soon for more right here on Beyond ARTV.